Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Israel Networking Hub. If you've just joined us for this half, I welcome you. And if you continue with us, we had a double session today following the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I thank you for joining us for both these sessions. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here on a Monday morning after a challenging week for Am Yisrael, which was a challenging period even before that, but which was exacerbated this week. So I thank you for showing up live. And if you're watching the recording, I welcome you and I thank you for joining too. Thank you again to our sponsors, or thank you to our sponsors, Nardis Advisors and Eggert & Cohen, who sponsor all the activities through the Israel Networking Hub, including what we had before. So today we have a fabulous lineup and a fabulous session. We're going to be meeting for 90 minutes, which includes a great presentation from Rachel Moore, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment. We're also going to be having two sets of breakout rooms, one which is going to be starting at the very beginning. I'll explain it after I've just introduced Rachel, so stay with us through the end. We're also going to be having a raffle at the end, where I raffle my book, Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs. You do need to be present live in order to take part in the raffle at the very end, so please stay with us. And before that, we're going to be having another set of breakout rooms. So two sets of breakout rooms where you're going to have the chance to interact, to network. And of course, besides that, there's networking throughout the entire time via the chat. So feel free at any time to share with us what you do in the chat, especially for those that you won't be in the breakout room with too, so that they can see what you do, who you are, and share your links, share your contact details, etc. So before we start off with the breakout rooms, I'm going to replace my spotlight with our guest for the day. Welcome, Rachel Moore, who is known to many of you. Rachel is the CEO and founder of Moore Connected Communications, which provides public relations and communication services for Jewish public and non-profit organizations. She'll tell you a lot more about what she does, how she does it. Today, our topic is Connected and Covered, Smart PR for SMBs, which stands for Small to Medium-Sized Businesses, which most of you are. And we're going to be talking also, in addition, during challenging times like we are facing right now and will be faced for the last year, more than a year, but especially now, how we show up and what kind of PR we can do. So Rachel, before we go into the breakout rooms, just give us a little bit of a taste, welcome, a bit of a taste what we can expect today.
Good morning, everybody. Elisheva, thank you so much. I learned a lot from your presentation this morning, and believe it or not, there's a little bit of overlap there, which I'm looking forward to getting into. I'm hoping that I can leave everybody with a few tips on how to frame what you do and allocate a little bit of time so that you can do some of what we do without needing to hire a firm. It's obviously not the same, but hopefully we can frame it and give some tips. And it's nice to see some familiar faces, and I'm looking forward to meeting some new people.
All right, fabulous. Thank you, Rachel. So we look forward to hearing your words of wisdom a little bit later. All right, so as I said, we're going to go straight into the breakout room. So please do open up your cameras. If you don't want to join, you're not obliged, stay in the lobby. However, this is a fabulous time for you to get to know other people. Even if you're not in business and you're joining with us right now, it's a great chance to connect. And right now, I think that's something a lot of us are feeling, that we're losing that connection. Many of us have stayed pretty much housebound and are not going out as often. A lot of events have been canceled. Fabulous. So we're back from the breakout rooms, ladies and gents, and I trust and hope that you had a good and productive time. We're going to be having another set of breakout rooms a little bit later. In the meantime, I'm going to be replacing my spotlight now with our speaker for the day, Rachel Moore, who I had to get used to the joke between us, had to get used to pronouncing her name Rachel and not Rachel. So Rachel, I'm going to be spotlighting you now. Good morning, Rachel. And as I said earlier, some of you joined afterwards. Welcome, we're delighted to have you. Rachel is the founder of More Connected Communications, and she's going to be sharing with us today Connected and Covered, Smart PR for Small to Medium-Sized Businesses, SMBs, and she's also going to be mentioning a bit about how we can cope during the present challenging time that we're having right now with our PR. Rachel, take it away. The time is yours. And just to say afterwards, we're going to afterwards be having some announcements and then back into the breakout rooms. And at the end, we're going to be having a raffle for those that are present at the time. Thank you, Rachel.
Good morning, everybody. I really want to thank Lesley and thank everyone else for the opportunity to be dressed and out and in front of people. It's so good for one's productivity and mental health, and it's wonderful. Um, I also want to mention that I'm going to be speaking to you today about working with journalists, with two esteemed journalists, at least in the room, who I know and work. Hopefully they'll chime in if I say anything that they disagree with. What I'd like to do today is spend a little bit of time framing what every business owner can do to work with public relations. And I always start with sort of taking a step back and making the distinction between public relations and marketing. I'm going to not look at the chat at the beginning because if I do, it'll distract me. But I definitely would like to leave some time for your questions and see if I can be helpful. And if
Right,
anyone
and I
wants
will
to
read
reach
out
out to me at the
questions at
end.
a relative time if there are.
Okay. And if anyone wants to reach out to me after the fact, I'm happy to try to help then as well. So in terms of what PR is and what it is not, what I said in the breakout session, so forgive me for those who are hearing it a second time, is that I've been working in public relations for the better part of the last 30 plus years, not entirely in the nonprofit space, but most of the time in-house in organizations, as well as with organizations and for-profit businesses. But the space that I'm in is mostly impact. I don't really work with air conditioning compressors and all of the wonderful high tech that's coming out of Israel, but really in that impact space. And we view our firm and we strive to be much more of a holistic communications consulting practice than just a traditional public relations firm. And what that means is that we do focus on media relations and media placement for our clients, but we also try to look at the overall communication strategy and get involved with a lot of other aspects of how a business communicates itself to other people. So, what does it mean to say that public relations is not marketing? There's a lot of overlap, and a lot of people who aren't sure where they should be focusing their energy sometimes make the mistake because of that overlap. They both are involved with social media. The easiest way to break it down is to say that marketing is what you tell people about your brand, and public relations is what other people say about you. But I think that it's an oversimplification. Um, Marketing involves, paid advertising and lots of things where you have a way to be outward facing. But public relations is not paid advertising. The tone is very different. And it's an opportunity to show your leadership and your expertise in your field as opposed to what you sell. And it's also an opportunity for you to provide value. You're providing value to consumers of media and you're providing value to journalists. And I'm going to talk more about that as we continue, finding the win-win and bringing that value. But I think if you frame it that marketing is showing what value you bring to the customer, right? What are you selling them? It's one approach, and public relation is a different approach of like, what value am I bringing you in terms of what you do day to day right now? And sometimes that can mean giving away some of your professional wisdom that isn't ads and isn't marketing, and it's just providing some of that information, like Ellie Sheva did for us this morning, where she gave us some insight as she does, even though we're not. We all do. Uh, So I think that that's some of the difference. Both use social media, both have to deal with, you know, regular newspapers, but in a very different way. Um, so I want to start by defining your PR strategy. And a lot of people say to me, I'm small and I don't have a PR strategy. Um, but I think the first thing to do is decide what are your goals from your PR? Is it just to gain clients? Is it to broaden the base of the people that know you? Where is that community? For a lot of people, I think it's more realistic goals that public relations will give people awareness of your brand than it's going to bring you customers. Marketing has a funnel, there's an operation to it. It's not what I do, so I'm not going to talk to you about sales funnels, but it's more likely that people will get to know that you exist and be aware of your brand through public relations than it's going to necessarily bring you sales. I just watched a movie. I never watch movies. I just watched a movie called Nona's, and it's about this restaurant where the grandmothers do the cooking. If anyone's looking for a wonderful, not conflict-filled opportunity to be distracted from the war, I recommend it. But he can't get people in the door. And there's one restaurant review that finally comes out, and all of a sudden he's flooded with customers. That's not usually the way it works. Unless your pie business is on Oprah, generally public relations does not all of a sudden cause this massive flood of clientele. But one of the wonderful benefits of building brand awareness and a PR strategy is that it will change the way you talk about your business. And that will help you going forward, regardless of that one particular media mention, with everything else that you do. And we focus a lot on thought leadership, which I think is very relevant for people who are here today. There are lots of ways to demonstrate that not only do you create positive impact on someone's business or on their life, but that you have a level of expertise. And there's lots of ways to demonstrate that, because when people invest in your services or in you or in your business, they want to be getting something out of it and they want to invest in the best. So if I'm going to take Debbie Zilberman's course, I want to know that that course is the best course out there and that she really knows what she's doing when it comes to Amazon selling, for example. That I'm hiring, the realtor that's going to do the best job for me, et cetera, et cetera. And there's lots of ways to demonstrate that as well. The next thing that I speak about a lot, some people here may have heard me speak about this before, is knowing your audience. One of the mistakes and the traps that small business owners sometimes make is that they get really, really focused when you're working so hard on your business. Don't think about your business from your own point of view, as opposed to thinking about your business from the person who may need you. So, for example, a therapist may read psychology magazines, but chances are most people who need a therapist are not reading psychology magazines. What are they reading? Where are they? What are they consuming? So I could give you a million different examples. We've worked with a company that's based in Chicago, but the owner is based here in Israel, that makes mobility aids, which means canes and walkers for people with neurological disorders. Okay, which means there are specific walkers and canes for people with ataxia or Parkinson's. Incredible impact in the world. But the people who need to buy these things are not reading the Times of Israel. That's not where they are, for example. And in addition, we actually took another step back and asked, who's making the decision? Is the person with a Parkinson's diagnosis person that's deciding if they need a walker? And it turns out they're not, because anybody who has a permanent or temporary disability knows that we all would like to believe that we can do more than we can do. And therefore, nobody thinks they need a walker. The person who makes the decision on finally getting the walker is the caregiver. It's the spouse who says, I'm not going to let you fall, or the neurologist who says, you're not doing as well as you think you are and you really need that. So knowing that, we had to look at, what are the caregivers reading? The caregivers are reading how to take care of someone with Parkinson's. They're not reading how to manage your Parkinson's. So by figuring out who is your actual audience and then trying to ask ourselves, what are they reading? What do they care about? It helped us build a successful communication strategy with the business, and it completely reoriented what they were writing about and where they were writing it. Another good example that I give is we work with organizations that have to raise money. Philanthropists, for the most part, spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than they do on other social media platforms. So if you're putting all of your energy into your social media strategy on Instagram because you love Instagram, but your potential audience is spending time on LinkedIn, then you're going to have a disconnect and you're not going to get the results that you like. So that is one aspect of figuring out what they're consuming. It sounds daunting to spend so much time, that there is a difference also in regional markets. So we had a client who wanted to break much more into Florida and was getting published where New Yorkers were reading. So in order to reach more of the Florida market, just shifted the energy over to where they wanted people to know about their brands in a way that was really effective. Podcasts are important. Podcasts reach a smaller audience. You can't just look at numbers, right? The reach of the Jewish press is so much larger than most podcasts. However, podcasts are a very loyal audience, and most people choose certain podcasts that they listen to regularly, and therefore, consciously or subconsciously, they have a certain amount of consumer loyalty. So if they hear something on a podcast, they're more likely to act on a recommendation or act on hearing that person than if they read an article in the newspaper, because the newspaper, they don't feel that they have a relationship with it in the same way. So understanding that about consumer behavior, it can actually be an extremely effective place to go. There's a science to prepping yourself to be on a podcast, and I would like to hopefully come back to that because it is very different than other spaces. Most people who do a podcast interview are not going to spend 40 minutes just talking, drilling down into their business. They're going to talk about themselves. And that's part of what makes the podcast interesting. And so that's why I think that it's slightly different. Um, there are print newspapers and online outlets, and there are some newspapers that are both, but not all are. And that's important to understand. The Jewish press has separate editors, and if something goes into the Jewish press online, it doesn't necessarily go in the print newspaper and vice versa. And it's important to understand the behavior of both. And then, of course, there's always TV, which doesn't seem that relevant to most people, but is slightly more accessible than you might think, particularly when it comes to certain outlets. And we'll come back to that as well. But you sometimes it's guessing, but sometimes it's also taking yourself out of the mind space of having expertise in what you do and trying to create for yourself sort of a fictional persona of what the ideal consumer, your ideal customer, how old are they? Where do they live? What do they like? And by going through that exercise, you can get some insights into where they may be consuming their media and where you want to focus your attention. I also tell people who don't work in PR and don't like PR, it's better to really focus on one thing or one outlet. I'm really going to spend time in social media. I'm really going to work on presence in newspapers than trying to do everything and then just failing because it's daunting and overwhelming, which is the same idea of baby steps that we have to do with everything else that we don't like. Before you're going to, then once you sort of decide where you're going to go or where you're going to try to go, one of the things that we do with our clients is to work on preparing your story. And this is not an exercise that should take you a lot of time. You could decide you're only going to work on these questions when you're sitting in a mamad, for example, minutes a day, and keep a separate notebook. But everybody who has a business in order to address a pain point. You solve a problem. You help people stop bringing their anxiety and worries into the workplace and having it negatively affect their business. You help people manage conflicts and resolve them in such a way that they can then get on with the more positive parts of their life. You help them communicate what they have to say in a more productive and positive and efficient way so that they can impart more information to more people faster. All of those things are addressing a pain. Unfortunately, when it comes to most media, people are more interested in reading about problems than they are solutions. And it's important for the audience to understand your solution, but first to understand the pain point. For example, people may not know how much their personal baggage or anxiety negatively affects them as a boss or in the workspace. They may not even know that the problem exists. Disney spent millions of dollars on a campaign that focused entirely on the lack of family vacation and kids on phones and the importance of taking a few days to just put the phones away and enjoy things together as a family. It didn't say Disney. It wasn't about Disney. It had nothing to do with Disney. What they were doing was talking about the crisis of people not taking a family vacation and families not talking to each other anymore. And then, after spending months of focusing on that, or in the same magazine, they would have ads that were showing you the solution, but they didn't connect the dots. And there are lots of other examples like that where large companies are focusing specifically on the pain point. Toyota patented a new installation in cars to secure car seats. And then they spent over 6 months on a public relations campaign that just talked about the correlation between infant deaths in car accidents and car seats that were not properly fastened into cars. Again, spending all this time and energy focusing on the pain point while then offering up their new patented solution. We can't all do that on such a macro level, but we can talk about how the things that we do address certain pain points, and specifically during war and during lockdown, right? Everybody's pain points change. And it could be that there's a new and interesting way for you to specifically talk about the solutions that you bring in the world, addressing those particular pain points, because it's something that we can all relate to here. And most of us work in a profession where we have a lot of competition. So the next question is, what makes your solution different? And it may be that you don't do something in a revolutionary way that's different than everybody else, but you all bring your personality and we all bring our what I call unique selling points. What makes your solution special? It could be your background. It could be that you have a particular niche and you work with a particular audience more. It could be just your life experience, but everybody brings something. Maybe you're better at it. Maybe you can bring results in a faster amount of time. Some people want to work with a service provider that's more emotional. Some people want to work with a service provider that's less emotional. Know yourself and talk about what it is that makes you uniquely good at what you do. And then the third is, what's the compelling journey story of your business? It's boring. Again, if you think like the consumer, it's boring to read an article about how, this person provides the best walkers, and why, and what's the science behind having a light on the walker. What's fascinating is that the founder of the business there was no solution out there for the rare condition that his mother was diagnosed with. And there was not a single walker or cane that could help her in the world. And he was an engineer. So he just spent a lot of time in the garage figuring something out. And that's how his business was born. And his mother was able to walk him down the aisle because he created this rigged up mobility device for her and found out that there were hundreds and thousands of other people who needed it. That's interesting. And he created something from nothing because he loved his mom and he wanted her to be able to walk. And everybody has a story, and that story brings flavor. It brings the salt and the seasoning to your business. And you may take it for granted, unless you've spoken for Lesley and she's helped tease it out of you. And that's one of the value of having things like this. But if you spend some time making notes on what's the problem that you solve, what's the pain point, how can I become more educated on the dry facts and statistics about the problem that I solve? Because I know intuitively it's a problem, but if I become an expert on just how much that problem impacts other people, getting that information, combining it with how does my business address that pain problem in a very specific way, and then what's unique and special about it and what's part of my story, you will be in a better position to speak to the media when the time comes. And that's the prep work that I would suggest that you do. And again, it doesn't have to take a lot of time, and you can definitely do it on the side. Building media relationships. Toby may laugh during this part. People who work in public relations, by and large, are extroverts. And there are a lot of people who find what I do painful. going into a room or a conference of 1,000 people that you don't know and finding that fun is not something that most people I speak to can relate to. But at the end of the day, just like any other sales, any other business, public relations is very much about relationships. And it, it is very difficult for you to provide value to a media outlet without understanding and getting to know that media outlet a bit. And I had mentioned before that there's some overlap with what Elisheva spoke about this morning. One of the things that she said is that the exercise in conflict resolution involves discovering the deep motivation of the other person. Correct, Elisheva? And what I tell everybody who works for me, and really at the core and the heart of our business, is finding the win-win. And I think that the exercise of finding the win-win is helpful to everybody when dealing with your PR and with dealing with any other aspect of your business. Editors have a job to do and journalists have a job to do. They're looking for certain types of stories. They're looking for you to not patronize them and do their work for them, and at the same time bring them tremendous value. They don't want you to waste their time. They're not interested in your agenda. So when you understand that and you build a relationship around a win-win, then it builds trust. So very frequently, the mistake that I hear from journalists is that people come to them and they will talk to them endlessly in both a way and in terms of content about what they want, right? I am the greatest thing since sliced bread and I want you to do a story about me, as opposed to really taking a step back and understanding, what does this journalist write about? What style do they write? What do they care about? What are they looking to bring to an editor? I've had many situations where I've been interviewed over the political situation, and the journalist has said to me, I just want, I really want to include this section, but my editor is probably going to throw it out. And the interviews go better because I understand that the editor has a motivation as well. The editor has a certain audience, the editor has a certain agenda, and the journalist is only going to get so far as that editor is dictating for them. And so it's a part of understanding that journalists will be happy to work with you if you're focused on helping them and not just having them help you. And I don't think that's just true of journalists. Again, I think it's true of anybody in finding the win-win. We negotiate this with a communication strategy for our clients in ways that don't have to do with print media, like figuring out certain VIPs, high profile people to come to an event that attract attention. So we know why it's great for your conference to have said VIP there, but what's in it for the VIP? More often than not, they're happy to come because they're getting paid, but they get a lot of paid invitations. Why your event? And finding out what's in it for them can make a huge difference. Just a very quick story. The Lone Soldier Center was moving their annual Thanksgiving dinner from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. They wanted to use it as a PR opportunity to get attention for the work that they do. And so I suggested to them at the time that perhaps they invite the defense minister, who was Naftali Bennett. And I reached out to Naftali Bennett's office and said, this is a room full of English speakers who have followed you because they're English speakers. And this would be an opportunity for you to show support to all these soldiers, right, who've left their families and are here alone, who relate to you specifically because they speak English. That's what was in it for him. He walked into the room, he was like Elvis Presley. I mean, I couldn't believe it, right? He was such a rock star for them because for these soldiers, as an Anglo, they connected to him in particular. And he related to that. It wasn't just a cold invitation. It was understanding what would be in it for him. And finding out, is this somebody who's going to want to have privacy in a back room? Are there other people that are coming that they want access to meet that will make it easier for them to say yes? So finding the win-win isn't just in terms of the journalists, it's in terms with everybody that we're dealing with, and providing value for them. One of the things that you can do as a small business owner is provide information to journalists that is not a pitch for a story. I just wanted you to know that there was the first report that came out showing the scientific data of the efficacy of tapping. And you may not be working in a tapping story right now, but this is really interesting, compelling data. And I wanted to share it with you because you work in the health space. And this is the meeting of mindfulness and science. And I know that this is the beat that you cover. And I don't know whether you've had access to this report. We had a client that published the statistics on terror, acts of terror in 2024, specifically in Judea and Samaria, as opposed to the rest of the country. And we sent it to hundreds of journalists without a pitch. There were specific journalists for whom available for an interview pitch was relevant, but there were a lot of other people that we knew would just want to have the information. And that's also brand awareness, and that's providing value and building a relationship. And there are lots of times and ways that you can do that and let journalists know you know what they write about, you know what they care about. You can also provide this information on social media. We have a client who works in the space of helping Anglos in Israel manage their finances, and she just put together a free PDF that breaks down the guidelines of what benefits are a result of this war in English. It's a resource she needed to organize for her clients anyway. And by providing that free value within the community, she's making so many more people aware of her business. You don't want to give away everything that you do, but it is a fantastic way to get yourself out there and to have more people know about you. So the next aspect that I'm going to speak about, I'm going to leave this slide off for just a minute, which is to be responsive. When a journalist is looking for quotes, they will finish their story within 2 hours, most likely. So you're not going to spend a lot of time getting back to them. It isn't every day that somebody with a small business, is asked for a quote by a reporter. But if you are, done is better than perfect. And it's important to be responsive in real time. I had a journalist reach out to me at 7:30 in the morning, an editor actually, and said, I'm working on a piece about the accessibility of bomb shelters for people with disabilities across the country. And do you have someone who can speak to me? And it took me three hours to secure an interview for him. And the story was completed without us by then. And that is not so atypical. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are reached out to, it's because the journalist is trying to finish up a story. They're not coming to you at the beginning. And if you are a fast and easy solution, then it's great. And if not, they will probably move on. So that's another great reason why doing some of this work ahead of time. How do I know that I have statistics and value in my space? Or how can I talk about my business? And if you take care of that prep work ahead of time, it will make it much easier for you to be so responsive in real time. The other note on here is to allocate time. The analogy I make for people is that I do not like accounting, right? I work with people, I work with a very extroverted space. I'm not a real numbers person. It's not fun for me. And as a business owner, I have to allocate a certain amount of time a month in order to do accounting. Because if I don't, then I can't go back to doing the things that I love. So my suggestion is that if all of this sounds to you like root canal, which happens, that you put it in your schedule that you're going to spend 15 minutes a week, right? Going into LinkedIn and commenting on what other people in your profession say, or finding a way to make a post, or sharing an article about what you do that shows that you're reading in your own space and your expertise in your own space. This new article came out with scientific findings on the benefit of conflict resolution. And if you read this particular, expert within it, there's really a lot to be learned there. You're bringing value. You're letting people know about the expertise of your field. You're letting them know what to read, right? And that's a small nugget. But if you don't schedule time for it, you'll never get to it. Just in the same way that if I do not allocate time for accounting, I will never take care of it because it's not fun for me and I will do other things. And it becomes that closet that you just ignore. And we all have that. So that's also not really about PR. But I recognize that a lot of people come to us because they hate doing what we do, which is fine. Just schedule a small amount of time to do the amount that is manageable. So when the two principles that I tell everybody that works for us is to find the win-win and to make yes as easy as possible. Yes for the journalist, yes for the editor. And what does that mean? It means that when a client is going onto a podcast, we figure out ahead of time which podcasts are actually relevant, right? We take the time to listen to them, which people find really annoying. You can listen to them in double speed. You should never be pitching a magazine, a newspaper, or a podcast that you have not consumed at all. It will come across and it sounds tone deaf and insensitive. So do the prep work. But then I will send the podcast, the person's headshot, the person's bio. I will suggest for them what questions they should ask the guest. Now, again, I'm not doing all their work for them and I'm not telling them how to be a host. But by giving them questions, I've now made it so much easier for them to have this guest on than a different guest where they have to do all of their own research, that they're twice as likely to take a different client of mine to be on their podcast a different time because I've made their job easier, right? When somebody says to me, I need an expert to talk about the accessibility of bomb shelters, I won't just give them a phone number. I'll say, this is the person you're speaking to. This is their title. They prefer phone or email. And here are 3 questions you could ask them to speed up the process of getting to where you want to get to. This is finding the win-win. And this is also making it so much easier for them to say yes. They're going to use my source over a different source because I just did the extra work to make it easier for them. So again, I can send somebody, I thought you might find this information interesting. Or this report just came out, and I really think that this is how you could use it as a journalist. This is why you might find it valuable. And here are the 3 most important takeaways, in my opinion. Because maybe you're not going to bother reading the whole thing. I've just skimmed it and digested it for you. I've made it so much easier for you to open my email and say yes. If I am sending an opinion piece and I want an editor to consider it, if I don't send an email explaining it, then they have to read the whole op-ed to know what I'm talking about. And if I send an email that's as long as the opinion piece, then I'm making it too much work for them. If I can find a way in 1 paragraph to succinctly describe for them what's in the opinion piece, I've just made it twice as easy for them to say yes. And this is, again, it's a great principle when you're dealing with journalists and editors and when you're dealing with the media, but it's helpful with everything else that you do as well. To give a different example, if somebody who's a coach sends me a prep sheet, we're going to be working together before you show up at the first. Please make sure you're hydrated. Please make sure that you've shut off your phone. And here's 3 questions that I'm going to be asking you. You've just made it so much easier for me to be a successful client because you've prepared the space and you've made it easier for me to say yes. So it's definitely something that I feel has made a difference over time in building the relationship with people in the media and the press. And you should have a folder. You should have your information, even if you're saying journalists aren't going to write about me. Have a folder with a short version of your bio. When I say short, I mean maximum 3 sentences, a longer form of your bio, and a headshot, and all of your social media handles for your business. So that if somebody asks you to come on and be interviewed, you can send it to them, because when they advertise the podcast, they may add in your handles of your business in the about. And if you have to scramble and look it up afterwards, you're less likely to get it to them. Keep it in one place. Make a document. Have it ready. Have it ready as a manifestation, even if you don't think you're going to be interviewed. Because then when the time comes and somebody says yes, everything's going to be there and be easy for you. When Lesley asked me to do this, she needed a headshot and she needed a bio and she needed my social media handles. And it was much easier for her to have me on if I could be responsive in real time and just say, here you go, I have everything ready for you, than if it takes me forever to find it. So it all relates to making the yes easy. And make it your homework that when you're stuck in your mamad for 10 minutes, that's going to be the time that you build this folder. And again, done is better than perfect. Put in a picture that's not a headshot you love as a motivation to get yourself a better headshot. Don't wait. Because it's such a big impediment that people don't do an interview because they don't feel like they're going to be perfect yet. And it gets in our way. A few other practices, we haven't actually gotten the siren.
I know, us
At least for
neither,
now, I'm
but you
going
know
to
what? The
jinx it.
alert is enough to make us jump. So
I
keep
feel a
going,
little
would you
bit like,
be great?
like we,
Also just relate to
um,
this time about how to share and what PR to do during challenging times like this.
I will definitely get to it. In terms of practical PR tips, one of the things that you can do is host an event, and invite journalists, invite them to just come and enjoy it and see what you do. If you're giving a free demo, you might not think of inviting journalists, go out of your way to invite them. They may not write about it, but they're going to know a little bit more about your pain point and your space. And then they may come back to you when they're working on a different story because they're more familiar. Um, I have to move the gallery so I could see my own slides. Consume what you pitch, which is something that I already told you. Be patient and persistent. Um, Sending information and content to journalists. In my business, you have to be very prepared to get a lot of no's. Not everything is the win-win, and finding the win-win means trying a lot of things and having that not all of them go through. Um, I would say, I send pitch emails. I can send something to 150 journalists and two of them will respond. And that's a great success because then that client has just gotten two great interviews. And the rest of them are getting thousands of pitches a day, and that's okay. But maybe mine lands on that particular day. There's a difference between sending everything to everybody and wasting people's time and annoying them. And at the same time understanding the volume and sending things out and not necessarily expecting that you'll always get the yes. And like I already said, share your value. Let's see, that's when I was going to bring up specifically the war. Um, Everybody's covering the war and everybody's covering different angles of the war. So rather than just thinking, how do I jump into the conversation, figure out where's your value. What is it that you bring to the conversation about how people are getting through these difficult times? Maybe it's changes in economic policy that Anglos need to know about. Maybe it's 5 things you never thought that you could do in the 5 minutes that you're stuck in your shelter that will make the rest of your day better. Um, it's fantastic information to be able to share. Somebody may or may not want to use it. The likelihood that there are journalists over the next week that are going to be writing about tips and tools for the rest of us to survive this, to survive the uncertainty, is significant, right? And they're much more likely to write the story if you don't write it for them, but you're giving them actual valuable information for them to use in such a story. So it's the primary goal of our business is to not be annoying. But that people can find public relations annoying because if people are constantly pestering you with their product and their company and their clients and their agenda, it feels like a pest. And at the same time, if you take a step back and say, how do I act? No time and place. Know that right now is not the best time to talk about the fact that you produce the best honey in the country. It's just not the right time and place. I have a client we've been working very, very hard to get information out about the fact that they are using low tech and high tech to revolutionize the lives and the independence of permanently injured soldiers. Fascinating, right? Tricking out your Alexa so that you don't have to rely on a Miss Appel to help you after you've been injured in this war and you're a war hero is tremendous and it's exciting. But it's also not the time right now. People want the same client to talk about what do people do who can't hear to know that there's a siren? What technologies exist? That's what they want to hear about. The time and place will come to talk about the technology that's being developed for these soldiers, but it's not now. So um, that's also really in part, it's all a part of empathy. It's all a part of stepping outside of yourself, thinking like your consumer, thinking like the journalist, taking a step back. How am I valuable to the conversation in this particular time and space? How am I bringing value to what the journalist has to do anyway? All part of that same exercise, just in different ways of framing it. I would say that if you just wanted me to sum up the important takeaways. There's certain things I've said enough times that I think you guys get the point. Allocate time to it if it's not fun for you. Make sure that you have the narrative of your business, not just your elevator pitch. Who you are, what value do you bring, what pain point do you address, and how do you address it uniquely? Available ahead of time. Your headshot and your bio and your links ahead of time. Figure out who's consuming what where. Make sure you consume the media that you're pitching to, and that you're pitching something that's a win-win. Look for the added value. Look for where you're contributing something to what it is that they have to say in a way that's effective. And this is a great way for you to engage as a service provider in general.
Right. Okay. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Rachel. We're going to come back to you at the very end where you'll give us your final food for thought. And thank you to all of you who have stayed with us despite the alert or the siren that you received in your area. Very informative information, Rachel. Thank you so much. All right. Before we go into the breakout rooms, I just have a couple of quick announcements which I'd like to make, and which some will be relevant for maybe some people and some are less relevant for others. So first of all, I would like to announce those of you that live in the Netanya or surrounding areas, we have our next, and Bezrat Hashem will be able to have it still. It's still a couple of weeks, so hopefully we'll be done and over by then with this current war. July 15th, Tuesday, 10:30 to 12:30 is our next in-person Netanya Women's Networking event. Most of our members come from out of Netanya, so whether you're in the north or the south, and some of you are here in our group, so you're invited to join us. Stay tuned. You can see details also on my site. If any of you would like to be a future guest on our Monday Motivation Spotlight, please be in contact with me. We've had some phenomenal people. Many of you are here in the room, and we're always looking for interesting stories and people that can motivate and inspire. If you're not yet part of our Facebook group, the Israel Networking Hub, this is all through the Networking Hub, the Israel Networking Hub. If you're not yet part of our Facebook group, please do join today. It's a great place to stay top of mind, promote what you do, connect with others. And one of the beauties of this group, there are certain rules that apply, but that you can promote your services or products any day of the week, as opposed to other groups which are often very limiting. So here, if you've got something that's relevant that you need information to get out right away, you're able to do it. Okay, now we've also got something new, which is great, and I welcome and invite you to become a VIP member of the Israel Networking Hub. You can scan the QR code there, or you can take a picture, or you can just go into my website, lesleykaplan.com, and see the information and what you gain by being a VIP member. One of the beauties of this is that it's a very low investment. I especially keep the rates low. Our annual rate is what many people charge for their groups for their monthly rate. So the idea is to keep it as a select VIP group, which is different to the Facebook group, which is free for anyone. And you'll go into the site there or scan it, and you can see exactly what you can get and what you will get. There's also a lifetime membership. If you choose that, join us for that, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side. If you've missed any past replays or playlists, then have a look, go to my YouTube channel, also on Spotify, The Mind and Motivation, and you can catch some awesome speakers. What you're listening to today as well, if you want to re-listen to it, it will also be up on my YouTube channel. So please do subscribe. That way it'll also get into your feed every single time. And we're going to be having a raffle at the very end of today for Power Talks with women entrepreneurs. My book is also available free on Kindle Unlimited if you do have Kindle Unlimited, or you can get it as an ebook, or I sell copies here in Israel. You can also get it through Amazon, wherever you are. And likewise, with my first book, Small Business Success Toolbox and Guide, that it is available in the same ways, free on Kindle Unlimited and on the other channels. All right, so I'm going to be taking this off now. I'm going to now stop the recording, and we'll come back with the recording at the very end. All right, ladies and gents, welcome back from the breakout rooms. Yes, another siren that we had, and kol hakavod, thank you to those of you who were able to stay with us. For those that you were able to, we understand. So you can watch us on the recording. So let's have a look. We have a wheel with names, and we're going to be doing our raffle. So even if you've already got my book, if you do win, then you're welcome to give it to somebody else. Wow, that is just on the edge. Elisheva, kol hakavod. All right.
Thank you.
So you win a copy or one copy of my book, Power Talks with Women Entrepreneurs, and let's see who's going to win the next copy. Oh, cool. Isn't this funny? Two of our speakers are the winners. As you can see, this was not rigged. All right, I'm going to actually take down the screen share now. This was not rigged because I've got no way of rigging the system. So it is just hilarious that both of our speakers landed up winning copies. And the rest of you, stay tuned. You can participate in future raffles as well, or you do know how to get the copies if you want to. All right, so I'm going to take away my spotlight and just do a sum up with Rachel. I'm going to spotlight you again now. So if you can just give us a 1 minute, 2 minute summary, things that you would like us to think about moving forward, and then we can officially end today. And thank you for staying calm and collective, even with an alert or a siren, whatever you had in your background.
Every minute they don't take from us is another win, right? It was to actually be productive and get something done. And I appreciate everybody investing the time. A quick recap: know yourself, prepare your business, what value that you bring, find the win-win, take the time to think like your potential customers and consumers, figure out what media they're consuming, go to those media both in terms of with the focus on building a relationship and bringing value. Be prepared to be responsive quickly with something that's done instead of something that's perfect. And there's an opportunity for everybody to get a little bit more attention in the media and show up and engage and be part of the conversation and find opportunities to raise your hand and speak up about what the value is that your solution brings to any pain point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rachel Moore of More Connected Communications, thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you for sharing everything with us. Thank you for being part of us. For everybody else, thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of the breakout rooms. Thank you for sharing your words with your group as well. And most important, thank you for showing up today, even during this challenging time, and for staying with us, even though we had alerts and sirens during our recording. So if there was a part that you were not able to see or you'd like to listen to this clearly, it's going to be up shortly on my YouTube channel. For those of you that are listening to the recordings, thank you for listening, and I invite you to join us in person or via Zoom, but in person via Zoom Live, so that you can be part of the group and be part of an active and energetic group. Thank you again. You've been listening to the Israel Networking Hub. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you again to our sponsors, Egan & Cohn Insurance, as well as Donatus Advisors. Stay safe. I'm Israel Chai. Kol hakavod once again, and thank you to our Air Force, as well as to our soldiers. And we are strong. We are resilient. Even if we think we're breaking, even if we're under stress, even if we're lacking sleep, the most important thing is that we're here, we're alive, and we keep going. So thank you once again. I'm Israel Chai, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you again, Rachel. Bye-bye. And thank you again, Elisheva, for being part of our first session. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.